Okay, hello everyone at Achieve and those who are not at Achieve but are still joining us anyway. Thank you so much for joining us to the Achieve Oxfordshire podcast / Facebook page. However you're joining us, you are always welcome. I'm Lizzie, I'm one of the practitioners at Achieve, and we have an absolutely fantastic, lovely guest today who's got an immense amount of knowledge around nutrition and all things when it comes to kind of diet and food and everything that we need to know around those things, as well as lifestyle and how it can affect kind of our mental health as well as our physiological health. So we're really lucky today to have the fabulous Abi here. Big round of applause. If there's an audience, I'm sure they'd be going crazy for you. Abi, thank you so much for joining us. Today we are looking at fibre. So first of all, I feel it would be nice for you to kind of maybe introduce yourself a little bit and also just tell us your interest in fibre. What is it and the benefits?
Cool, Lizzie, thank you very much for that introduction. I've now got to live up to it. Hello, my name's Abi and I'm a registered nutritionist. So actually nutrition was my second career, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and really it's just seeing the benefits that people can have by changing their diet and their lifestyle to their overall well-being. And the reason I'm so interested in fibre, which when I talk to my groups about it, they're kind of like, really? But actually it can have just a profound effect on your mental and physical well-being. So I thought, just to start off, as he said, if we could just kind of think a little bit about what fibre is, because I think for some people they think, oh, it's a bowl of all bran, or it's brown rice or whatever, but actually we can think of 5 different categories of fibre. So if we think about our whole grains, so that would be our brown rice, brown pasta, wholemeal bread, all the rest of that. But then we've got another category of fruit and vegetables. So keeping the skins on your fruit and vegetables, it's those types of fibres that are really important too, both in fruits and vegetables. Then you have got your pulses, which are things like red lentils or hummus, or if you have beans to your casseroles. So those and those count as one of your 5 a day. So that's worth knowing. Then you have got your nuts and seeds. They all contain lots of different fibres. And then finally, you've got your spices and herbs. And in that category, you've also got coffee. And did you know that if you have a cup of coffee, that contains about 1 gram of fibre? Not proposing that you go away and drink 30 cups of coffee, because we need 30 grams of fibre a day. That's our recommended dose of fibre a day to keep everything moving well, because that's one of the jobs of fibre, but we'll go into some others in a minute. But it's really important that you get the fibres from lots of different sources. And first of all, I wanted to talk about the general health benefits, which quite a few of you might have heard about. So say something like oats, we know it's the type of fibre which is called soluble fibre in oats that reduces our cholesterol, which is brilliant if you've got cholesterol issues or cardiovascular issues. We also know that fibre makes you feel full. So that's a bonus if you're trying to lose weight and you'll think, oh, I'm always feeling hungry. If you introduce more fibre into your diet, it's going to make you feel full. And all those different types of fibres feed what we call our microbiome. So that is, there's a whole huge colony. I know some people are like, really? There's that many? There's billions of bacteria living in your gut. And these guys actually do a really important job. And I think this is probably one of the most exciting areas of nutrition at the moment. We're discovering they don't just sit there and, we're like a host and that's where they live. They send messages all the way around our body. And the type of messages they send really depends on how well we feed them. And what we want to do is to give them as many different types of fibre as we possibly can. So if you think of those 5 groups, so say you're having, you've decided you're going to have some nuts as a snack. Instead of just having almonds, have a whole mix of nuts. So say you're going to buy a pack of seeds, buy mixed seeds. So every single one of those nuts and seeds, they'll have different nutrients and different minerals and vitamins, but also they have different types of fibre. So you're doing yourself a real favour by kind of mixing up the types of fruit and vegetables and nuts and seeds and pulses. And if you can, I gave my group, the challenge today, is they could try and include 30 different types of fibre a week. Now, I know that sounds a lot.
Wow.
I gave them a couple of recipes. So, one of the recipes was like for this bolognese sauce. So it's like, I call it bolognese with extras. So you can use it for lasagna, you can use it for whatever. We could put it up later if people wanted to have a little look. But
yeah, we'd love that. Yeah. Send me the recipe and I can definitely get it up on our Facebook page. Great.
So it's got everything that you'd expect from a standard bolognese. So, your tomatoes, your onions, your garlic, but then it's got red lentils, it's got spinach, it's got carrots. So just in that recipe alone, you're talking about probably 6 different types of fibre. So actually, then you think that's just one meal. So actually 30 doesn't sound that unrealistic.
Hang on, was the challenge 30 types of fibre in a day or in a week?
No, in a week.
Oh, right. Oh, great. Yeah. I was going to say, wow. Yeah, cool. So really just to kind of like, I don't want to summarize yet, but just looking at that, really, it sounds like such an important part of our diet is variety.
Yeah.
And that's something that we kind of impress on the course, isn't it?
Yes.
But even kind of more so when it comes to, like you say, with the fibre and stuff, and all the different types of fibre actually then send different messages throughout your body. Yeah. So is that kind of what you're getting at there with the variety of it?
Absolutely. And the messages, they're called metabolites. So they're little chemical messengers, and they travel up to our brain, to our lung, to our heart, and they're sending messages to keep these organs healthy and happy, which is why we often hear about food and mood, the link. So if you're eating a really good diet that's keeping these guys happy, they will keep you happy, as it were. And you can kind of think about it the other way around. If you think that actually you're nervous, you've got an interview or podcast like this, and your stomach starts having a few butterflies, and that's the reverse effect. That's your mind coming down to your gut. And I know we were going to talk a little bit about those people who have Crohn's and IBS and other kind of IBD diseases, but we know there's been a really interesting piece of research that often for those who have things like that, they're recommended the FODMAP diet. And this piece of research, which is just fresh off the press, is that they did the classic of putting people on the FODMAP diet who suffered from those diseases, cutting out certain types of fibre, which is quite a restrictive diet, and you should never do it on your own. You should make sure you're doing it with a qualified dietitian, and then you need to start increasing those fibres back in, but finding out the ones that maybe upset your gut. But actually, what they did is they did 2 groups. One did the FODMAP diet, and the other one did meditative yoga. And surprisingly, the ones doing the meditative yoga did better. Their symptoms became much reduced comparative to the ones on the FODMAP diet. So I think sorry, Lizzie.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think there's so many, whenever I've done yoga, there's always 2 or 3 different positions that you do, and they say, oh, this is great for your digestive system. And like, I don't know if it's just in the moment you think, oh yeah, actually I can feel everything moving. Or, if it's something that's been told and then my brain just believes it, or if there is stuff happening there. Because I've definitely found that when I've done things like yoga, or when you move more, my body responds so well to it. And not in terms of just like feeling energized and stuff, but actually like my digestive system, and I go to the toilet more regularly and it feels great, No, sorry.
No, it happens to me too. So basically, if you're doing anything, any sort of exercise, just walking, it massages your gut. By just moving, it massages your gut. And obviously all those lovely twists in yoga, that's kind of, it's moving your gut, it's getting it working. And that will really, really help, keeping you, because we're meant to move as animals. We're meant to move probably much more than we do. And although it's something I'm bad at, you should actually, I think it's helpful if you put a little reminder on your phone or your screen or whatever. You've been sitting for, every hour, move around, just have a stretch and get your gut moving. And I know that because I get a little bit of IBS, if I'm stressed, I can just feel it. My gut just goes, ooh, I'm not happy. That's where my emotions show themselves. And I find if I just do, as you were saying, some of those kind of yoga stretches and twists, everything just calms down.
Yeah.
And so it's just your gut getting a little upset, but it's those messages that go both ways.
Yeah.
But actually, if you're having a diet that's really full of kind of quite processed foods, so all the fiber's been taken out, then that's obviously your good bacteria aren't going to survive. So you're going to have a lot less of them to send those messages around your body to keep you healthy.
Can we touch a little bit more on like food and mood in terms of, you said there, like, and I've heard a lot of stuff actually. I cannot quote the research, but I've definitely heard a lot about how, when you are feeling low or you're feeling stressed or whatever, it can affect everything that's going on internally. And I would especially like to focus on that, like you say, that gut health and how how your thoughts can then kind of relay themselves within your body, and also the other way around, where if you've got a healthy gut, your body is getting better sort of messages and feeling better from the inside out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I was really impressed. One of my the people on my groups this morning was actually making his own kefir, and why that's one thing that's important is kefir is full of the really good bacteria, the types that we know have this effect on our mood. And if particularly if you've been on a course of antibiotics, which some of you may have been, it's really worth taking a course of what we call probiotics. Now those are the good bacteria. There are a couple that I could recommend, but maybe we could put that on a link separately.
Yeah, of course.
But
yeah,
just a week's worth of probiotics, and it can, kind of, particularly if you've been on antibiotics, it can recolonize your gut. And also if you think, gosh, this is something I've never done before, well, are there going to be the good bacteria down there? So it might be helpful for you to start taking some probiotics to get the bacteria growing. And then at the same time, if you're feeding them well with more fiber, then the whole thing will flourish in your gut. And then, I genuinely think you will feel the difference in your mood. But do gradually, one different food at a time, and trying some probiotics. I think that's the way to go.
Great. And could you just go through, Abby, as well, just the soluble and insoluble fibre for me?
Yes.
Well, not for me, for our class and everyone else. I'm not just being nosy, just I think it would be really good for people to, just decipher between the two, and then
Yeah. So they're the two different types of fibre. So you're finding your insoluble fibre, which I've said has a really positive effect on your cholesterol levels. So just without kind of using scientific data, it almost kind of filters out the cholesterol out of your blood. It doesn't literally do that, but that's in effect what it is doing. But so that you find in your pulses, so things like your lentils or chickpeas or any type of bean that you can think of, and oats as well, which is why I think we push kind of the old porridge quite hard for breakfast. But I know porridge isn't everybody's cup of tea, and if it isn't, try that overnight oats. I know that's we'll talk about that in I think it's week 3, isn't it, that talk about breakfast a bit more, but it's worth trying it in different forms. So it soluble fiber almost produces a kind of it kind of becomes quite kind of stodgy in effect. So if you look at, maybe you've made some porridge and you've left it for a while, and it kind of goes into that gloopy kind of lump, that's what it does in your stomach. So that's why it makes you feel lovely and full for longer.
Okay, so soluble fibre, we want to kind of relate that to like cholesterol, being able to lower cholesterol, also feeling a bit fuller for longer, and those kind of things.
Yes. So the other fibres are the soluble fibres are the ones where you've got them kind of around the outside of a potato. So it's like your potato skin or your apple skin, or the fibre that you get from whole grains from the outside of wheat. So that's like slightly different. That they're really important kind of to eat those fibres, because that's where a lot of the nutrient is, and obviously that's fibre that will form your the bulk, and also feed your good bacteria as well. So they're really important to kind of make sure you include those. I mean, it's all fruit has got the fibre in that kind of way, but obviously with the old tropical fruit, you wouldn't eat the skin of a mango or a kiwi or whatever, but you've got to peel that. So they're slightly lower in fibre, but they all have goodies in them But the tropical ones are slightly higher in fruit, but I'm going on to fruit now. So
Yeah. Okay, and then we do touch on this in the course as well, but just around kind of like smoothies and things like that. I think people that assume that just because you put loads of fruit into or veg into a smoothie or a drink, that you're getting the same kind of fibers and sugars. Could you just talk through that a little bit for me?
Yeah, of course. So basically, if you it's like any processed foods. So if you blitz all those fibers, you're doing the job that your gut would do. So that's all being blitzed, and the cell walls in a very small level being broken up. So your body can access the sugars from those fruits much more easily than if it was eating the whole fruit. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a smoothie, but just be aware that it is going to be the sugars in that smoothie are going to be a lot more accessible than if you actually eat the whole apple as well. And we talk about, just the amount of smoothie that you should be drinking as well.
Yeah. And what does that mean then if the sugars are more accessible to the body?
Yeah. So if they're more accessible, then it's going to affect your blood sugar level. Particularly maybe if you're pre-diabetic, you want to kind of manage that. And that's called your glycemic index. I think we talk about that again, don't we, in week 3. So it's kind of making sure that you're keeping that on a nice, even level, and you're not having these spikes. And if you do have a spike in sugars, whether it's from fruit or any other source, what happens is your insulin is released because your body doesn't, it's not good for it to have glucose circulating in too high levels. So when it's detected in too much higher levels, insulin is released, and insulin's job is to, if you like, grab hold of the sugar and take it to them and store it. But the problem is, if we are constantly pressing the button of our insulin, it gets a bit fed up and it gets worn out, and that's when you can start becoming diabetic, and then the insulin doesn't become so effective, kind of goes a bit on strike, and then you've got the blood sugars circulating around your body, which we really don't want. It isn't good for you, and it's not good for your cardiovascular health as well, because what happens is the liver slightly, not panics, but it converts it to fat around the liver, and then you've got more fat circulating. So again, for your cardiovascular health, you've then got more of the fats that you don't want circulating around your system. So you want to keep your blood sugars a nice steady stream, and you also don't want them to go too low. You don't want to feel too hungry either, because if you feel too hungry, then you're desperately kind of probably going to eat the nearest thing to you. So you want to keep a nice steady stream, because your brain runs off glucose, and to keep that kind of working and functioning well, as well as all your muscles and the other organs of your body, you want a nice steady stream of energy.
Lovely. You can breathe now, Abby. Bless you. And it might be, I'm just thinking there, you just kind of popped a little light bulb into my head. It might be worth us having a little chat around kind of pre-diabetes and diabetes. And I know there's a lot of people in the course who have maybe been told that they're on their way to diabetes, and actually we can reverse that. I had a couple of ladies in my last cohort who managed to go back from pre-diabetes and are now doing really, really well. So we could definitely have a little chat around that. I think that would be great for our clients. Amazing. Okay, so recommended daily amount, we've already said, is our 30 grams. And we want to get that from a variety of foods, and making sure it's not just from one source. In terms of, within the UK, we are definitely not hitting our recommended fibre amount that we should be having. Is there a reason why, do you think?
I think we're eating more and more processed foods, so they've had the fibre taken out of them for various reasons, for texture reasons or whatever, and maybe we're eating more kind of convenience foods, because again, they tend to be less fibrous. I think to encourage people to kind of cook from scratch, but maybe adding in the fibrous foods, like, if you're making a casserole, add in a can of beans, add in extra veg to things. I think it's just those kind of small changes. Once you start doing them, they're easy. They become part of the way you cook. So and making use of the canned veg and the frozen veg. I mean, I think those sometimes get forgotten, and they think, well, we think they're not as good for us. Well, they absolutely are, particularly in kind of the winter months, just adding some frozen spinach. I mean, you obviously wouldn't want a plate full of frozen spinach with your salad, but actually frozen spinach in a casserole or a stir fry is brilliant. It works really well. So I think it's just about, you think, oh, I haven't got this in, or I need to plan for that. But actually having those stores of cans and frozen and canned stuff can be really, really helpful. But I think as a nation, we, maybe just to encourage ourselves to kind of cook from scratch a little bit more. I mean, it does involve a bit of planning, and it does involve a bit of time, but boy, I think it'd be really, really worth it to your long-term health.
Yeah. And I love my slow cooker, and you can just, like you say, those canned, canned tomatoes and canned beans and things, you can add them in and it's great. Yeah. And I think that as well, so often we hear this thing around, and it's something that we're looking at Achieve as well. We hear this thing around, I can't eat healthy because I don't have the money. And obviously it's awful to be in a financial situation where you feel like that. Yeah. But there are ways, and something that we're going to be exploring over the next couple of weeks is being able to increase your nutrients within your diet at, in a way that isn't extremely going to affect your bank balance and things that are kind of living on the breadline and stuff. And I think it'd be great if you could just kind of, I guess, outline a few foods that you feel like are a good starting point for people who are just maybe they're not able to spend a lot of money on food or whatever, but actually just maybe 2 or 3 really good starters that people can have in their cupboard to increase their fibre intake.
Yeah. So one, if you've got a freezer compartment, I think the frozen fruit and veg. So all year round, you can get those bags of berries, and you can get really big kind of value packs of them, and they are great for putting in your porridge. I mean, obviously they do go a bit mushy, but actually if you can just warm them up a little bit, make a little fruit compote, and that can go in your porridge.
Oh, nice.
And that's full of vitamin C and different fibers. And again, it's a mixed bag of berries. So all those berries will have different nutrients for you. And those, we know that, I think, I can never pronounce it right, they have anthocyanins in them, those purple berries. And we know they're really good for our, actually preventing things like Alzheimer's. So really good for our long-term mental health. So buy yourself a bag of frozen berries. And they're literally, I don't know, they're £1.50 for a great big bag, compared to what you spend on a punnet of strawberries or whatever, and they last a lot longer. Frozen spinach is another favourite of mine, and they come in, it comes in like cubes almost, and you can just, pop a few cubes into your casserole, or as I say, your spaghetti bolognese, or whatever it is you're making, or your stir fry. So that's another really cheap one. And again, compared to a bag of fresh spinach, and it's because it's frozen at source, almost like frozen peas, which are another great one. It's going to have more nutrients locked into it. And so if it's always good to have these kind of store cupboards where you think, oh, I need to go to the shop, I haven't got anything fresh. But actually, if you've got the frozen stuff in there, that's really useful. And as far as your tins are concerned, obviously your friend is a tin of tomatoes. And actually tinned tomatoes, because tinned tomatoes are cooked, they have more of the ingredient called lycopene, which is really good for us, and we know it has kind of cancer preventative properties. So can of tomatoes, and you do not have to buy the expensive cans of tomatoes. You buy the 18p ones, and they might not be chopped up, but if you've got a knife, you can do that, can't you? It's not hard.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's exactly the same thing. There is no difference at all. And any sort of beans that you like will add kind of fibre to any of the dishes. Or you can make your own hummus. So all you need is just whatever type of beans, some flavouring or spices, and blitz that up with a bit of oil. So
just doing a bit of research, I guess, and finding some things that, and like you say, just like the Tesco's own or any other supermarket brand tomatoes and beans and stuff like that are absolutely fine. Like it's it doesn't have the brand name, but it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. The other thing about brands that really winds me up is the cereals. So all the cereals, the branded ones, like the Cheerio brands, if you buy multigrain hoops from Sainsbury's or Tesco's or wherever it is, they are much lower in sugar and salt than the branded ones, and also almost half the price. So, and if your kids think your kids are going to notice the difference and buy one of those, plastic Tupperware things, They will never know.
They
will never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, so we touch on this as well in the course, but actually marketing, like these big companies, they do pay a lot of money for their marketing, and they will pay supermarkets to have their products at eye level, so that you're actually like drawn to it and you're drawn to those colors. But actually, you know, if you look a little bit lower, if you just go down, like you're
high or look down low.
Yeah.
Really winds me up, because you think, you know, just look at the bottom. There's going to be exactly the same product at a really, you know, cut price. Yeah,
it's do you know what it is? It's awful, and it drives me insane as well, because they talk, you know, the government talk a lot about obesity and how it's the worst thing in the world and all this stuff, and then, you know, they'll happily let supermarkets get, you know, drawn into, you know, draw consumers into buying foods that are full of sugar, full of salt. And anyway, that's for a different day. I could get me all wound up otherwise, Abby.
I was just one other thing, I don't know whether I just emphasised enough, is that you know, we have quite a high prevalence of colon and bowel cancer in this country, and I think a lot, you know, we know that's to do with the fact we don't eat enough fibre. So I think that's another, you know, really good reason to make sure that you eat enough fibre, because by making sure that everything is moving through and you're not constipated, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because, you know, obviously what you're passing out has toxins in it, and if that toxin is in contact with your skin, the epithelial level of outside of your bowel, then obviously that's going to have more time for it to have negative effects on your bowel. So you want everything moving through, and you don't want to be constipated for any length of time. So that is another reason why it's really important.
I love that we can do more of a focus around health than around that number on the scale, because you know, and it's just I think it's nice to think about food in that way and what it can do for us and what we can gain from it, as opposed to what we need to cut out and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. The other thing I wanted to quickly go through with you is, for clients or people that are listening to this that are struggling with things like Crohn's or colitis or, you know, IBS and stuff, often they are a lot more worried around fibre and maybe getting their fibre from different sources as opposed to the general kind of population. I just wondered if we could just touch on that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, it's a very different. It's autoimmune diseases, the ones that you mention, and I think one of the most, you know, key things is that, you know, even if you've just been diagnosed, and you may well be under a gastroenterologist, and you may have gone through all these steps, you may have been on the FODMAP diet or a more restrictive diet, because sometimes the fibre can upset the ulceration that you get. So you've got to be really aware of that. And I think one of the ways that you probably know what upsets you, but keeping a food and diary symptom tracker is a really good idea, just to see, you know, gosh, I ate that and that really did give me a bit of a flare up. There is one supplement that you could try, and it's turmeric, which obviously you can put into, it's a spice that you put into your curries. It gives it that yellow colour. It's an anti-inflammatory, and there's been some studies with it and ulcerative colitis. So it's really worth, you get it as a little capsule, and the capsule also contains black pepper because that helps its absorption. And always take it with a meal because it needs to be absorbed with fats. It's fat soluble. So that is worth giving a go, because it certainly won't do you any harm at all. But really just being aware of what foods upset you, by keeping a food and diet symptom tracker could be really helpful. But, you know, make sure that you're getting the expert advice you need, and you probably do need to be seen by a gastroenterologist. You need to be seen by a specialist.
Yeah, and I guess being able to reflect back on, you know, foods that you have had, and just kind of not being like, oh well, that's just another thing I can't have, but just you know, being able to create your own menu, I guess, of things that work really well for your body.
And remember, your immune system does change as well. So just because you had a reaction to that food, again, it could be, you know, it's that whole gut-brain axis thing. You know, maybe you'll get flare-ups when you're much more stressed or anxious. It's as well when you're making that diary, that food and symptom tracker. It's as well to put in how you're feeling about life, and it also can be after a period of stress that you get a flare up as well. So it's kind of bearing in mind all those things, and maybe including in your lifestyle some way that you feel you de-stress, whether that is meditation or exercise or going for a walk in a wood or whatever it is. Making sure you make some me time and really to de-stress yourself as well.
Oh, I think that's so, honestly, I'm really glad you said that, because I think it's so important, and so many things come back to our mental health and how it affects our bodies. And I used to get the most awful eczema, like my body would, like, all over me, it would just come up, and it would usually be after something quite stressful, and I used to sort of really snap at things, and I really struggled to kind of handle any kind of stress in my life. And I had counselling, and I got together a nice toolbox for myself, and things that, not an actual toolbox, but like just ways for me to be
you.
And I can't, honestly, I can't recommend it enough. That personal growth, however old you are, it doesn't matter. You can always learn something about yourself, and how you can, and kind of, I can't tell you how much improving your mind can really. I haven't had eczema in about 7 years now, like, and the only time it'll come up is if I use a dodgy washing powder, and it's one of those ones that's a bit dodgy, and that's the only time it comes up, and it's amazing. And I'm sure, I'm not saying that having a good mind is going to cure all of diseases or anything like that, but
it's part of the whole package, isn't it? And you've got to prioritize it as well. And I get acid reflux, and I know when I'm stressed, because I can feel it. And you're like, okay, you're stressed, you need to, what's going on? Think about how you can reduce it.
Check in with yourself, and be a bit selfish sometimes, and just check, am I all right? Because if you're not okay, you're not going to be able to help other people. So cool. I love that we've come back to that. The very last thing, Abby, was just, I wanted to just touch on, if you're increasing your fibre, is there anything else that we need to be doing?
Yes. So if you're increasing your fibre, you may get some side effects in the fact that you may get more wind, but that's absolutely fine. That will be part of the process. And I tell I've got 2 boys, I tell them to be proud of their farts, because actually what the wind is, in a lot of cases, it's the good bacteria, it's their byproducts. So they're ingesting and releasing gases. They're called short-chain fatty acids, but so that's what's being released. So it's a natural process. But if you increase your fibre, then you do need to make sure that you're drinking enough fluids, water in particular. So at least kind of hitting that 6 to 8 glasses of water a day. So that's really key.
Great, amazing, thank you so much. So really sort of key takeaways is variety, increasing that hydration and water if you're going to increase your fibre, being active, checking in with yourself, and doing a bit of exploring around fibre and how we can add it to our meals. And maybe we all need to be doing your 30-a-week challenge and see what we can get.
Absolutely, see what happens. It's just learning that actually what goes on the gut doesn't stay in the gut. It goes all the way around our body. So you start thinking about that, and then it makes you kind of reframe food in a slightly different way, which I think is going to be good for all of us.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much. And if anyone's got any questions, they can just let us know in the Facebook group, or they can email us. So and you'll be happy to kind of be fibre expert.
That would be lovely. Great. I will look forward to that. Okay, thank you, Lizzie.
Thanks, Abby.
Take care.